Hello everyone, this is the Lexo623 and here is another video from me. So it's almost June. So I figured, why not make a special thing out of the month when I was born. So I decided, for the month of June, I will be celebrating my favorite director. Now, why am I recording a video about this in May? Because I make up the rules and I can do what I want. That is why. So, today, we're going to start Tarantino Month, where we review Quentin Tarantino films. So, today, we're going to talk about his first film that he directed and wrote. And that would be Reservoir Dogs. Now, Quentin Tarantino was the director, and this film stars Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Christopher Penn, and Steve Buscemi. Now, so, let's read off the synopsis. 4 perfect killers, 1 perfect crime. Critically acclaimed for its raw power and breathtaking ferocity, it's the brilliant American gangster movie classic from writer-director Quentin Tarantino. They are perfect strangers, assembled to pull off the perfect crime. Then their simple robbery explodes into bloody ambush, and the ruthless killers realize one of them is a police informer. But which one? So, this film started off Quentin Tarantino's career, pretty much. Which, this is not his most popular film, but it was his first film. This is the first one, and it is really good. I love Quentin Tarantino's directing style, and the way that he masters the art of the conversation. Now, Reservoir Dogs, while it was his first film, it wasn't really the one, it technically wasn't one of the ones that popularized him. The one that made him really famous, his most famous film that most people have seen, is Pulp Fiction. And I will try to review each of his films in order of when he directed them. Now, I will not be reviewing Natural Born Killers or True Romance because he only wrote those ones and I am not directing. And I am not reviewing Four Rooms because he only directed a segment of that. But if I ever do a Robert Rodriguez month, I may reconsider my decision. Alright, enough talking about Quentin Tarantino month. Let's finish talking about the movie. So, Reservoir Dogs. This is a crime film, obviously. And it's also sort of a mystery that unfolds as you watch it. So, it has a really good story. It's, of course, about these robbers, but it's mainly showing what happened after the robbery. Which Quentin Tarantino a lot of times likes to kind of mix up genres sometimes. And he kind of mixed up this crime genre with making it be after crime. So, basically, the story is that they go to this warehouse, that some of them go to this warehouse, the survivors go to this warehouse after the robbery went wrong. And first people to get there are Mr. White, played by Harvey Keitel, and Mr. Orange, played by Tim Roth. Now, Mr. Orange got shot, and he's always going on about how he's dying. So, let's go through the characters. And, yes, This will have spoilers in it. So, first off, we'll just start with Mr. White, played by Harvey Keitel. So, Mr. White is... Okay, so, Mr. White is one of the first characters that is introduced, in the movie. Well, and technically when we first see him is in the opening scene where they're all in the diner, and they're talking, which is basically where he started his art of the conversation, which I may do, like, a video essay on how he mastered the art of the conversation. So, Mr. White is shown driving Mr. Orange to the warehouse. Now, Mr. White decides to tell Mr. Orange his name, and throughout the film, he trusts Mr. Orange up until a big reveal that I will talk about when I talk about Mr. Orange. Okay, Mr. Orange, one of the more important characters in this film. Mr. Orange, played by Tim Roth, is the one who is screaming that he's dying after the credits. And we find out later that, here's when the spoilers come in, we will find out later that he is actually an undercover cop. So that's why he's always yelling, he's like, take me to a hospital, take me to a hospital. I don't care if I get arrested. The reason he says he doesn't care if he gets arrested is because he knows he won't, because he works with the police. And he was the rat. So, next, let's talk about, Michael Madsen, who plays Mr. Blonde. Well, we're talking about Mr. Blonde, whose real name is Vic Vega, character's real name. Fun fact, Vic Vega is the brother of Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction, and I will talk about Pulp Fiction later. So, Mr. Blonde is pretty insane, and he ends up going on a shooting spree in the, well, he like just starts shooting everyone in the where they're robbing, and he causes a lot of chaos. And so he captured a police officer and drove him in the trunk of his car. Fun fact again, Michael Madsen, that was his actual car. And what he decided to do to freak out the guy who's playing the cop, drove him around and hit a bunch of bumps and stuff to scare him. So, basically, pretty sure that the actor who played the cop was pretty upset about that. But, so he kidnaps a police officer in the back of his car, and they start torturing him, asking him who the rat is. Then some of the other characters go off, and so after they go off, he decides to stay and torture the guy. And there is a scene where he cuts off the police officer's ear, then picks it up and starts talking to it. So, yeah, and then he tries to douse the police officer with gasoline before he gets shot by Mr. Orange. So, next, moving on to Nice Guy Eddie, played by Christopher Penn. He is, so Nice Guy Eddie is he like comes in later and he's like, oh, all this, y'all messed up or whatever. And he's like, he's like, oh, where's Mr. Brown? Which they bring him up a lot. And not Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown. But Mr. Brown is dead. Fun fact. Mr. Brown is Quentin Tarantino. So, Mr. Brown, we're not going to talk about him or Mr. Blue because they are not main characters, but just wanted to point that out. So, Nice Guy Eddie, later in the film, he's like, so Mr. Orange makes up a story saying that, Mr. Blonde was going to, steal the diamonds and kill everyone else. And that's why he shot Mr. Blonde. That's not the real reason, but they don't know that. So then they do a Mexican standoff, where Nice Guy Eddie is pointing a gun at Mr. Orange, Mr. White is pointing a gun at Joe, and Joe is, Mr. White's gun is pointed at Nice Guy Eddie. I'm sorry, I can forget things very easily. So, next, we're going to talk about the last character, Mr. Pink. Mr. Pink is played by Steve Buscemi, one of my favorite actors. And, he is always talking about how he's mad that they're all acting unprofessional. So basically, yeah. So, he is one of the better characters in this film, actually, and he doesn't trust anyone. He's like, oh, well, for all I know, you could be the rat. Or you could be the rat. And he's the one that figures out there was a rat. Because he's like, oh, 1 minute cops aren't there, next minute they're there. So, yeah. Alright, now enough of my rambling, and now I get my final thoughts. So, this film was Quentin Tarantino's first film, and it was really good. Well, it wasn't technically his first film, but it was his first, like, major film. His first film was, like, one that he made, like, not really professionally, and half of it was burned. Half of his original first film was burned. So, yeah. So, Reservoir Dogs is a really good movie. It is like most of Quentin Tarantino's films, it's told out of order, and it's a really good style, and, alright, so, those are my final thoughts. I guess I could give this one a 9.5 out of 10. It is a really good movie. I don't usually give stuff 9 out of 10. Alright. And this film has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, which a lot of Quentin Tarantino's films have high percentages on Rotten Tomatoes because a lot of them are good. Alright, enough of my rambling. This is Alexo63, signing off.